So much great content on social media today is shot on big expensive cameras, but it really isn't necessary to actually be able to record something that looks great. Because with just a few tweaks to your smartphone, you can actually make some pretty amazing looking footage, even if your phone isn't the latest and greatest. Right now I have an iPhone 14 Pro Max, so I don't have an iPhone 15 or newer, which has gotten Apple Log, which is a quite revolutionary thing to have available on a phone. But to be honest, I don't think most people would use it because getting a great result isn't as straightforward with Apple Log as it is when you just record with a baked-in picture profile where the contrast and saturation in the image is shown. You would also have to invest in an external SSD to store the footage, and you would also have to understand how to grade the footage afterwards, since Apple Log is a flat picture profile. So it requires a few more steps, which most people don't want to go through. So though it sounds cool, it really isn't for everyone. If you want your footage to look more like a movie or cinematic, a lot more actually has to do with how you set up your phone and the lighting you use. So today I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks to get better looking results from your iPhone. Let's get started. The first thing to do is to download either the free Blackmagic camera app or the free Final Cut camera app, since the built-in camera app that comes with the iPhone is quite limited. I prefer the Blackmagic camera app since it has more options available, so I'll be using that in the video today. So if you want to follow along, download the Blackmagic camera app. What you'll also be needing is some ND filters that can be screwed onto your phone case. I have these ND filters that Sandmark sent me a little while ago, and they work great. So I'll be using those. Note that if you get them yourself, you have to also buy a case from Sandmark, since that's what they get screwed onto. But the filters work on all the phone cases, so even if I were to upgrade to an iPhone 16 Pro, I would just have to buy a new case from Sandmark, and all the filters I already have and lenses and stuff like that would still work fine with the phone case. So that's always nice. Last thing you need is optional for outside recording, but essential when you're recording inside. It's a one light that can output at least 5600 Kelvin. Preferably a portable light would be great. I'm gonna use this C100 RGB light stick from Zhiyuns, since it's super easy to move around and attach to a tripod and stuff like that. So that's what I'm gonna be using in this video. The simple reason for the light is just because, well, this is how it looks without a light inside. And this is way better. So if you need to make some videos indoors, absolutely get a light. A portable light is great, simply because you can move it around and have different locations. But generally I would say get some sort of light that can output 5600 Kelvin, and you'll have a great image that you can use for your videos. When you have downloaded, in this instance, the Blackmagic camera app, then you need to set it up right. So let me walk you through how I have mine set up. For the most part, try to use the main lens, which is the 24mm. Set your frame rate to either 24, 25 or 30 FPS. Then your shutter speed should be double your frame rate. My ISO I keep at 100. But just try to keep that as low as possible. And the white balance, try to keep that at 5600 Kelvin or change it depending on the environment. Then I like to turn zebras on or off if I need to see if something is blown out. So this is very much dependent on this situation. And then I also keep the grid on all the time. You have a few options, but I usually just stick with the rule of thirds grid. Then I keep it at 2:1. Then if we go to settings, this is my settings under the record tab, and these are my settings under camera. And the rest of the settings I just keep at the default value. Once you have set up your phone to the right parameters, then you're essentially ready to film. However, to get some great results, I actually have some tips and tricks I'd like to share with you. The easiest way to completely destroy your footage is to simply just go ahead and walk in a normal tempo and record simultaneously. This is the classic homemade video look that you have seen your mom do so many times when you were a child. I've at least seen it so many times. So let's fix it. Here's what you do. Learn ninja walking. Ninja walking is something you see people that use a gimbal do all the time. Essentially, it's just moving slowly while trying not to shake too much from side to side, up or down. So to get the best results, you should focus on trying to put your heel in the ground first and then roll your foot. And then it's super important to bend your knees because that makes it possible to balance out the big shakes you would otherwise make. It might look strange to people if you do it in public, but believe me, it's worth it when you see the results compared to just doing it the other way everyone else is recording. So though it looks weird, I highly recommend to just do some ninja walking from time to time. Storytelling and video editing is becoming a very normal thing to do to your phone footage these days, but I often see so many people make the mistake of not thinking about the next steps they're gonna make. So in one clip you might see them go left, but in the next clip they might be going right and the left again. So if you have a short sequence, think about when you go left, in the next clip it should be the same route or gradually changed with other clips in between. Because it just looks weird that even though you might have a certain location you need to go to, but if you in the clips go from left to right, from right to left all the time, it kind of just ends up being weird and people don't know where you're going and it just makes them go off your video because there's no momentum. 24, 25 or 30 FPS are great to use for footage that's supposed to be in normal speed and real time. However, if you're looking to get some slow motion or smoother footage, 50, 60, 100 or 120 FPS is the way to go. Because you'll quickly notice that if you try to slow down footage that's shot in 24, 25 or 30 FPS, it kind of becomes choppy and that doesn't look good. But if you slow down 50, 60, 100 or 120, it simply just looks phenomenal because it was intended to be slowed down. And if you then combine it with the ninja walk, then I can almost guarantee you that people would think it was shot on a cinema rig, even though it was just your phone. There's a lot of rules when it comes to filming, and depending on the environment, if you have a subject, textures, leading lines and so on, you can always find a way to make something boring look great if you know what to do with your surroundings. But knowing what to do with your surroundings are where a lot of people just kinda completely freezes. So here's a few ways you can frame your recordings and then you'll be guaranteed to get something that looks great. If you record vertical footage a lot, then the best solution is to position your subject in the middle, from my experience. There's really no way around it. The middle is the best composition. However, with horizontal footage, you have a lot more ways to express yourself creatively. But to be honest, the best way is usually with the rule of thirds. So, since we have the grid turned on, try to position your subject at one of the lines, preferably with the eyes hitting the cross section. With landscapes, hitting the upper or the lower line also gives a pleasing image. So the rule of thirds is game changing, and that's also the reason I always have it on. So try to follow the lines and you'll get some great looking footage every time. I know that movement in your footage can look great, but sometimes it can also completely destroy it. So sometimes once you have framed up a shot, recording and just standing still is the best thing you can do. It isn't always better just because the camera moves. Sometimes the way the world moves around you is the best footage you could have captured. So mix it up from time to time. A little bonus tip is just that capturing a sunrise or sunset will almost always make something look cinematic. So just capturing footage when the sun is at the edge will always look good. If you also want your footage to have some more character, getting something like this anamorphic lens can be a great way to simulate the film look, since a lot of films are shot on anamorphic lenses. The Blackmagic camera app also makes it super easy to de-squeeze the lens. So getting a nice looking image with flares and a stretched image is super easy. And you can even screw the ND filters on the lens. So a phenomenal piece of equipment. For most of the shots I've shown, I've also used this cage, but This is simply just to make the footage more stable. You could also just record like this. I thought I should just mention it for you guys, just so I'm completely transparent about how I recorded the footage used in this video. Every piece of equipment is listed in the description, so you can check it out below if you want to. Well, that was all for this video. Leave a like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. I'm out.